It didn't begin with missiles. It began with humiliation. January 12, 2016. The cold, shallow waters near Farsi Island in the Persian Gulf. Two small U.S. Navy patrol boats drift off course. Navigation failure, a technical error, a moment of vulnerability. Within minutes, fast attack craft of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps swarm in. No warning shots, no resistance. Just precision. 10 American sailors, 9 men, 1 woman, are surrounded, disarmed, and forced to their knees. Hands behind their heads. Cameras rolling. And then, the world watches. The footage spreads like wildfire. American troops kneeling under the aim of Iranian rifles. A U.S. sailor apologizing on camera, thanking Iran for its kindness. It wasn't just a tactical incident, it was psychological warfare, broadcast globally at the exact moment Barack Obama prepared to deliver his final State of the Union. Washington hesitated. Tehran didn't. But somewhere else, someone was watching and remembering. Donald Trump turned that moment into a weapon. On the campaign trail in 2016, he replayed the images over and over, not as a failure of navigation, but as proof of national decline. "I saw our sailors on their knees," he said, "humiliated. That will never happen under me." That message resonated. It cut through the noise, and it helped carry him into the White House. But words alone don't rewrite power. Over the next 4 years, Trump began paying what he framed as a debt of credibility. January 2020, Baghdad International Airport. A drone circles silently above the runway. Inside one of the vehicles below sits Qasem Soleimani, the architect of Iran's regional strategy, the second most powerful man in the country. The strike is instant, precise, final. The message is unmistakable. Even legends are not beyond reach. Months later, November 27, 2020, near Tehran, a convoy moves along a quiet road. Inside, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, the man widely considered the brain behind Iran's nuclear ambitions. A weapon, remotely operated, satellite-linked, AI-assisted. No assassin on the ground. In seconds, the convoy becomes a crime scene. 2 pillars of Iran's strategic power gone within a year. For a moment, it seemed like the balance had already shifted, but history doesn't end cleanly. It resets. What follows is an escalation scenario based on existing geopolitical patterns. 2026, Trump returns to power, more experienced, more calculating, and with unfinished business. January. The Strait of Hormuz begins to tighten under Iranian control. Fast boats, missile platforms, drone carriers, hundreds of assets deployed by the IRGC Navy. The world's most critical oil choke point becomes a pressure valve. February 3rd. 6 IRGC vessels attempt to intercept a U.S.-linked tanker. The escorting destroyer, USS McFall, holds its course. No shots fired, but the message is clear. Iran is testing the line again. February 17th. The supreme leadership in Tehran speaks. His tone is no longer defensive, it is confrontational. He warns of a surprise strike against the most powerful military on Earth, declares that any war will engulf the entire region. Simultaneously, Iran conducts live-fire drills and temporarily restricts passage through Hormuz, disrupting nearly 20% of global oil flow. Markets tremble. Alliances tighten. The clock accelerates. Negotiations begin in Oman. They fail. In this scenario, February 28, 2026, 2 a.m. Tehran time. The operation begins. Epic fury. Moments before the first strike, Iran's air defense network collapses, blinded by a coordinated cyber attack. Radar goes dark. Communications fragment. Then the sky opens. Bunker buster munitions, GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators, descend with surgical intent. Designed to pierce tens of meters of reinforced concrete before detonation, they don't just strike targets. They reach where nothing else can. In this scenario, when the dust settles, one name is said to echo louder than all others. Not just a leader, not just a symbol, but a figure who had shaped Iran's political identity for over 3 decades, reportedly gone in a single night. And with that, something deeper begins to crack. In that moment, the old order of the Middle East fractures. The White House frames it as preemption, clear signs of an imminent large-scale Iranian strike. Intelligence, they claim, justified everything. But by then, justification is irrelevant, because the sequence is already in motion. What follows is not chaos, it is calculation. Wave after wave of coordinated strikes dismantle Iran's military infrastructure. Bases collapse, supply lines vanish. Thousands of personnel are neutralized in what analysts later describe as one of the most asymmetric escalations in modern conflict. Such an escalation would come with significant human and economic consequences across the region. A delayed answer to a decade-old image. Then comes the backlash. Iran responds the only way it can, directly. Hundreds of ballistic missiles and drones launched toward U.S. bases across Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, Jordan. Casualties are real. American soldiers die. The conflict is no longer symbolic. It is kinetic. And yet, even as missiles fly, a quieter battlefield determines the outcome. Economics. Iran attempts a final leverage play, turning the Strait of Hormuz into a toll gate. Oil tankers seized, passage restricted, payments demanded not in dollars, but in yuan, a direct challenge to the petrodollar system. But the response is immediate. Secondary sanctions. Washington doesn't just target Iran, it targets anyone doing business with Iran. Banks, intermediaries, entire financial channels. Within days, major Chinese banks halt transactions tied to Iranian oil. Cash flow stops. And when cash flow stops, armies don't get paid. The machine begins to stall from within. Then comes the ultimatum, early April 2026. Trump delivers it with characteristic bluntness. Reopen the Strait of Hormuz completely, or face the systematic destruction of national infrastructure. Power grids, bridges, energy networks. Hours, not weeks. A deadline down to the minute. At that point, the battlefield is no longer defined by missiles or drones. It is defined by inevitability, because the reality becomes impossible to ignore. Iran is no longer facing a single opponent. It is facing a system. Military, economic, intelligence, aligned with overwhelming precision. A United States under a leader who frames retaliation as obligation, and an Israeli intelligence apparatus operating at a level where distance is meaningless. For the first time, survival is no longer about resistance. It is about recognition. Recognition of scale. Recognition of limits. Recognition of consequence. The IRGC patrol boats that once proudly swarmed U.S. sailors now lie silent beneath the waters of Farsi Island, or drift aimlessly, stripped of fuel and forgotten by commands from Tehran. Donald Trump didn't need a 100-page treaty of surrender. He only needed one reality. The debt of the 2016 humiliation had been reframed as a restoration of deterrence. 10 years ago, the world watched American sailors on their knees. 10 years later, an entire old guard faces a choice: kneel to survive, or stand tall and vanish into the dust of history. This new order wasn't built through negotiation. It was forged in the cold realization that resistance is no longer a strategy. It is a dead end.